Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, testing, 1. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, testing, 4. This is the Rise of a Street General, Michael Turtle Stewart. Great book. It's on Amazon. Autobiography. You know, we've all heard of Tookie Williams. You know, people are more, you know, learning more about Raymond Washington over the years now. The interest in him has increased over the years of being the founder of the Crips. In the history of Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles, you know, and how these, you know, everybody knows the story, but I didn't know about Michael Turtle Stewart. You know, I put this book up there actually with some of the great books, you know, Tookie's book, the Blu-rays, Black Redemption. That's a real good one. So I put this book up there with that one. And I'm going to read the preface and the chapter 1 of this book. Michael Turtle Stewart, one of the best books that goes into the California correctional facilities and the prison politics and the rise of the CCO and the Blue Notes, and how the rise and fall of both those groups. And it's a lesson to be learned in terms of unity, because, you know, game culture is a subculture, you know, here. And so we all kind of look at it, look down on it due to the violence that take place in the terrorizing the community, which is, you know, it's true. You know, but there's something to be learned from the mistakes that has been made through it all. So you can learn something from it, no matter where you're from, whatever walks of life. Because he goes into it. He talks about it from a military and political perspective, which puts it in a class of his own because you don't really get that too much from a lot of the guys. I think if you read Monster Cody's book, he glazed over it a bit, talked about how they were outnumbered by the 60s, how the 8 traders are outnumbered by the 60s, but they played used certain strategies to give off the impression that they were at an advantage when they really weren't. He glazed over it. Tookie book, Blue Ridge Black Redemption, he hinted towards it too. Now he goes into it. Michael Turtle goes right into it. Once he get into the prison system, well, even before he got that in LA counties, even when he was just in the hood, the Avalon neighborhoods, he talked about it, but he really went into it more so when he went to prison. And and when you're outside looking in, you don't know what a lot of those guys go through. You don't know that. You don't have any clue. Like, I don't know what going on. Being an outsider, out here in society, you don't have a clue of what those guys are going through and the type of wars they're up against. You don't know. So he goes into that. He said he wrote several books. This one was good. I know some more. He's gonna mention some more books he wrote in the book. And let me read the brief. Let's start on. I decided to write about my life journey through the game culture and the game banging arena that commenced in 1975. It highlights the traditional game banging activity of the Crips and the Blood on the east side of South Central Los Angeles. Without going too in debt or incriminating myself or anyone else, I want to highlight my time spent in small town of Fenton, Louisiana, the LA County Jail, and the prison modern-day plantation system. Some experiences in life can only be fully understood by those people that were a part of that particular experience. For instance, a woman can tell a man about the process of childbirth. He may understand everything she says about the process, but without personal experience, he can't actually understand the process of childbirth. Knowledge gives a person understanding and not experience. The same is said about an astronaut. He can return from the moon and tell his experiences to everyone, giving people understanding but not an experience of what it's like to walk on the moon. To fully understand games, the person will have to experience the process, and the process is not worth it. It leads to a dead-end journey. I would like for all walks of life to read this book and be able to get something from it. My intention is to put things in a historical and political perspective, to be informative and entertaining. I intend to dispel some of the myths, misinformation, and stigmas that have been attached to me in society, and since I have been in captivity, I can merely speak on my own experiences and interpretations as a loyal gang member of the Avalon Crip gang and the Crip Nation, and as a black man. The majority of my life I spent as a soldier to my individual gang, a soldier to the C Nation, and a soldier to my race. My experience and interpretation do not make the next gang member or soldier wrong or incorrect, or how he analyzed the events in his years of services. For once, I would like to write about my years of services from a military, political, and cultural perspective, which may be difficult for a typical gang member to do. Considering that they may not have an experience that will be unique or outside the box. The majority of gang members spend their entire career as gang bangers. I also want to mention that all gang members do not share the same mindset, so I would like to open this writing with a piece I call Inside the Mindset. I believe this piece is important because it gives insight to the mental state of gang members. In gangs, all members of the gang do not share the same mentality of status, although they all enter the gang with the same status. What they all share is the gang psychosis. The gang usually has a few members that, quote, put the said gang on the map. That is when a member does an act that has brought recognition to the said gang. In many of the traditional early sets, that act was established during the early and mid-70s. Most gangs put their sets on the map within the first 2 years of their inception. Putting your set on the map can become a defining moment in a gang member's career, as well as a defining moment in that gang's history. This was the type of gang member I was to become. To become the sort of gangbanger, a person has to always display courage and a lack of regard for their own morality. This means playing very little value on their own life, willing to sacrifice if necessary. That journey is very, very risky. To survive, it will most likely put that gangbanger in a dominant position of the gang. He can make the transition from gangbanger to gang member, honorable if he chooses to. What makes Crips and Blood so unique is the gang psychosis. Gang members become indoctrinated into the gang, just as soldiers get indoctrinated into professional military, army, or law enforcement agency. They become a soldier for that particular structure. He or she begins to learn and believe in philosophies and principles of that army. The soldier believes in the cause and becomes willing to fight and die for those beliefs. It is always those that goes beyond the call of duty or go the extra mile. Those who actually become game changers, unforgettable and commendable, and set the standard for that particular gang. Most social groups, collectives, organizations, etc. have established goals and objectives that every member strives to obtain, whether it is for political power, political change, cultural preservation, or social reforms. Gangs are not motivated by any of those factors. Gangs share one common goal, objective as a whole, and it is in one of the above. There is no pension, retirement account, or savings account at the end of a gang member's career, just as there is no present retirement age. Those two matters a gang member has to establish on a personal basis. If I had to sum up what gangs are all about in one word, I would choose the word reputation. In the single word lie the honor, pride, and the principle of the gang. That word also is the primary motivating factor for gang activities and behaviors that may appear bizarre or outrageous for the common citizen. The reputation has three components, which are to acquire personal reputation, 2, to preserve, protect a reputation, and 3, to expand a reputation. Those three components also apply to the gang as a whole. The gang must have a reputation among the gang culture arena to be acknowledged and respected. That reputation must be protected and preserved at all times and at all costs. The game changers are the members that expand the reputation. This is one of the reasons why the cops and district attorneys are quick to say the gang member did the crime in the interest of the gang. They will even use the line when it is untrue. That is another reason why the cops on the street validate gang members for the day they show up in the courtroom. When gang members believe that one of his members has caused dishonor, it's not an individual principle that he has dishonored, and that concerns the gang member. They are more concerned about the reputation of the gang as a whole being compromised. If the gang member can't uphold the reputation of the gang, he'll most likely be forced to take his show on the road, booted, or run off the set. If the gang member has an individual reputation, then his ego will dictate he protects and upholds his reputation. Being that gangs have their own unique structure, no member of the gang usually aspire or become the gang leader. The members focus on building the hardest reputation. To acquire a hard reputation propels a member to the status of being reputable. With that status comes influence and the reputation as one of the gang leaders. In each generation of the gang, there may be 2 to 5 members with the hardest reputation, and among that small group stand the most dominating members of the gang. Gangs also have what are called line pushers. A line pusher acts as an enforcer of the gang. Line pushers are members that are going to push other members of the gang to uphold the pride, honor, and principle of the gang. That status is mostly delegated to younger, reputable members of the gang. A line pusher is also the member who takes the initiative. He is most likely a dominating member of his generation, and he usually maintains a good relationship with the older, reputable members of the gang, just as a general or captain would have with his lower-ranking officers. The majority of gang members function under what is called get in where you fit in, or soldiers to the gang. The primary obligation of those members is to protect and preserve the reputation. They can also acquire personal reputation by functioning in the capacity, but it is unlikely that they will ascend to a dominating position in that gang. But that does not compromise the individual gang member's respect from the gang. When a gang member is initiated, he will go through a process that establishes his respect. That respect will be deemed to the gang member until he forfeits it by dishonoring himself. Sometimes the entire gang may attend a social function in order to establish their gang in the gang culture. In the 70s, all social functions weren't used as gang-banging arenas. Everyone attending the function was a part of the Sea Nation. We were all able to coexist in harmony without trying to kill each other. That may be a fight or two or even a melee, but it was against the traditional rules to kill another Crip or Criplet. The killing of another Crip was only endorsed for snitches and acts of treason. As in any army, it is forbidden to kill your fellow soldier. This traditional rule will slowly fade out. During the mid-80s, gangs made appearances at social functions for the sole purpose of turning the function out. Gang members began to do more bizarre and outrageous shootings to establish a reputation, to expand a reputation, and to preserve a reputation. Excuse me. Unconsciousness, ignorance, courage, and a lack of value for your individual life can create and produce a dangerous human being. When a gang member enters the state of mind, he begins to feel invincible. He doesn't even consider his own mortality. Even though he may see one of his closest friend or family member killed, he will still be willing to put his own life at risk. It was never my intention to ascend to a position as being the most dominating and reputable member from the Avalon Garden Crip gang for my generation, although it was me and my road dog objective to be the most notorious members. In all my undertakings, I had a vision and purpose. It may not have been endorsed by mainstream America, which didn't bother me. Coming up in the ghetto urban community, a person sees mainstream America as an entirely different world and therefore does not seek their seal of approval. In the mid-70s, my gang activity increased for the primary purpose of ceasing the conversion attempt by invading blood gangs, swans, and family. Always taking the initiative when encounter rival gangs or unwanted intruders made me ascend to a dominating position and being identified as the gang leader. Sometimes a person can find himself as a front runner or in a leadership role. When everyone's standing side by side with him, all of a sudden take 8 steps backwards. And he is standing firm in his spot. There's a lot of distance between the individual and the rest of the group, especially when no one knows where the finish line is. When that distance, it is too hard to catch up with the leader off of pack. Slow down. That was how I saw myself, and my 3 goals had become simple. To remove the invading blood gangs, to establish a reputation for my gang that would say, we are forced to be reckoned with, and to have a reputation for myself that would say, Turtle is courageous and not to be fucked with. I had never once declared myself the leader of our gang. I've always declared myself as one of the most loyal and dedicated soldiers from my gang set. The leadership label was attached to me by rival gangs and ally gangs, and once I was arrested, the system labeled me as the gang leader. After being victorious in extracting the invading blood gangs from the housing projects, I conjured up this concept that me and my road dog would set out projects as a small city, that we would govern these projects like a prince governed his city. I believe the policies that were implemented were for the good of the city. I want to be there for everyone who lived in the city. I felt a degree of obligation and responsibility to everyone who lived in the city. When I was a teenager with a dominant personality and status within a gang, the concept of leadership is abstract. He just followed logic on his decision-making process. I believe that the logic I follow at this time served for the good of myself and myself. Over the years of my captivity, I've been one of the gang members that have remained in contact with his homeboys and homegirls. When I lost contact with those at the time, another one or two steps up. Although they may not always do these things I want done, the things they do is very much appreciated, such as sending stamps or a few dollars from time to time, sending packages, or placing an order. Those things mean a lot to a person that has been held in captivity. When I hear a gang member or a prisoner complain about somebody not sending the amount of money they want or ordering everything they want on a package, I simply say, just think about all the people you know in life that isn't doing anything for you. And that's a lot of people. When I established the Fenton Crips, its purpose was not to establish a reputation for myself or to establish a reputation for them among the gang banging arena, but something more personal and important to me, and that was to challenge the racist white kids that attended the local school. I believe that my logic served for the good with the gang. I even attempted to close the gap between the two gangs by staying in contact with them via telephone. It was the time when some of my homeboys out here would talk to them and would be willing to drive down to the small town to meet them. I saw that gang as a subdivision of our gang out here. In life, I believe most teenage black males living in the ghetto urban communities reach a point in which he wants to validate his manhood and self-worthiness, and gangs are seen as the vessels for this validation. Very few gang members accomplish something extraordinary from gangbanging. Like I mentioned previously, most gang members fit into the category of protecting and preserving the established reputation of the said gang. Very few members do something to expand the reputation of the set. That requires thinking outside the box. I had no idea that extracting the 89 family bloods from the housing project would lead to the two gangs engaging in a long-standing war that has resulted in many deaths and many black males being ushered into the modern-day plantation system and producing no real winners. The Swans, on the other hand, was a rival gang of ours since our first generation of Avalon Garden Crips. Our generation, the second generation, merely reignited and advanced the rivalry. Throughout my gangbanging journey, keep in mind that this is a journey through the 70s, when there's only two generations of Crips, Big Crips and Baby Crips. Basically, the historical set gangs have these two generations of Crips. The later sets, gangs originated during what was called the Big LOC generation, the Big Locks generation. Beside my own, the names of Julius, Bosco, Sicko, Flint, River Rat, and Roscoe will be mentioned often. There was a host of other members from our gangs, but these are the main players, my everyday gang banging homeboys. I'll use the word projects in reference to speaking of the Avalon Housing Projects. This writing will also highlight my journey through the modern-day plantation system, my experience in organized cripping, the rise and fall of the Sea Nation, the infestation of the termites and cretins that lurk in the shadows, and the backstabbing, backbiting, cutthroatism, and disloyalty that became an acceptable code of conduct for many Crips. This writing will cover at least 38 years of my career, history, and experiences. I hope this book will put many things in historical content and be informative and entertaining. I'd like for this book to stand as one of the best written books ever on the science of gangs. Here's my story on how I raised to become a street general. If you want to achieve greatness, never ask for permission. The primary objective of a gangbanger is to acquire, establish some sort of reputation for himself in a progressive and aggressive gang arena. In this arena, it's about staying down, representing regardless of circumstances, consequences, or odds. It's about putting in work. The more you stay down and put in work, the bigger your reputation becomes. The bigger your reputation becomes, the more you are hated and envied, not only by outside gang members, but also your immediate homeboys. This is because gangs and gang members are in direct competition with each other for reputation. It is the rise of the netherworld. When I first started reading that, and we ain't even got into chapter 1, you know, I first started reading, like the rise of the street gang. I couldn't put it down. The first chapters, start with his childhood, how he migrated from the South, went to LA. He would go home and visit in the South sometime, and that's really, it's like when you read, because I'm gonna read it, when you go to the South, it's almost, peaceful in a way, coming from, the gang culture that he was in, because it was way more intense. Out there, they'd come home around family, and it was a long way from that, you know what I'm saying? I got that sense from that. I got that sense of peace that he might have had as a youth from that, and certain relationships that he developed during that time. But I truly, I love this book. I do. It's one of my favorites. I'm trying to get another copy because I don't wore this one out. The paper. If you keep reading them paperback copies, you'll eventually start wearing them out easily. You be one of them 7 MCs.